When someone you love dies, you grieve, you accept, you let go. At least, that's what you're supposed to do. I did all of that when my grandmother passed away. I stood beside her casket in a rural New Mexico cemetery, hands trembling, lips dry with grief. The sky that day was the color of ash. The wind carried dust and silence in equal measure. They buried her next to my mother, who had vanished when I was 5. I was 27 at the time, alone, empty. And for a decade, I believed she was resting peacefully beneath that weather-worn headstone. Until last month, when I got a phone call that changed everything. "David, it's Melissa," my cousin said, voice brittle with panic. "You need to come back home." I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. "What's wrong?" "It's Grandma. Her grave it's gone." "What do you mean it's gone?" "I mean the coffin. It's not there anymore. No disturbance, no dirt out of place. Just nothing." I thought she was hallucinating, stress, grief resurfacing, something rational. But she wasn't wrong. When I flew back to Roswell and followed her to St. Agnes Cemetery, I found it exactly as she described. The earth was untouched, the grass still growing, undisturbed. But when the groundskeeper, who swore no work had been done, agreed to help us check, we dug down. No casket, no remains, just earth. Perfectly layered, as if nothing had ever been buried there at all. And that was just the beginning. Because 3 days later, I got a letter, in her handwriting, from my grandmother, dated last week, postmarked from a location that doesn't officially exist, Area 6, Nevada Test and Training Range. The letter only said 7 words. "I'm safe, but not on Earth anymore." I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in Melissa's kitchen, the photographs spread out on the table like a portal. We didn't talk much. There wasn't anything to say. Every logical explanation had already been burned away by that image. My grandmother, alive, standing in a place no camera on Earth could have captured. And those beings, they weren't threatening. That was the strangest part. Even in a still photo, their presence felt peaceful, like standing beside a cathedral made of light. I stared at their eyes. No pupils, no whites, just blackness, pure and reflective, as if they could see something in me I couldn't yet see in myself. At sunrise, I made a decision. "I need answers," I told Melissa. She didn't try to stop me. I started at the obvious place, the return address on the envelope. There wasn't one, but the paper had a watermark, barely visible under the kitchen light. A circle split into 3 equal arcs, not a symbol I recognized. I searched it online, no results. Then I did something desperate. I took the photo to a retired Air Force contact of mine, Major Ron Kepler. He owed me a favor. Back in college, I'd helped his son through a drug addiction. I told him it was for a book I was writing, showed him the image, watched the color drain from his face. "Where did you get this?" he asked, voice low. "Just tell me what you see." He tapped the beings. "These aren't new. We've been watching them since '57. But this photo, this is recent. This is post-digital." He leaned in closer. "That corridor," he said, "it's not on Earth. And that marking on the wall behind them." He trailed off. "What is it?" He stood. "You need to leave this alone. These people don't want stories told." But I saw the fear in his eyes, and I knew the truth was close. 3 days later, Melissa found another envelope under her door. No writing this time, just a map. It showed the New Mexico desert, coordinates circled in red, an area near the old Trinity site where the first nuclear test happened in 1945. I drove there at nightfall, alone. I parked half a mile out and followed the coordinates on foot. At 1:17 a.m., I found the entrance, a hatch hidden beneath the sand. It opened from the inside, and something was waiting for me. The hatch opened with a quiet hum, like hydraulics powered by silence. It wasn't a person who greeted me. Not exactly. She looked human, but not fully. Her skin was smooth like polished stone, but faintly iridescent, reflecting the moonlight in shades I couldn't name. Her eyes glowed faintly violet, not from makeup or contact lenses, but from within. And when she spoke, I didn't hear it with my ears. I felt it, inside my mind. David Whitaker, you've come. I froze. How do you know my name? She told us you would. She? Your grandmother, Eleanor. My breath caught in my throat. Where is she? Is she alive? Follow me. We descended. The tunnel spiraled downward, impossibly smooth, carved not from stone, but something denser, darker, like the bones of the earth itself. Soft white light illuminated the path without any fixtures, just glowing veins in the walls, pulsing like they were alive. We walked for what felt like miles. Time didn't move right down there. Eventually, we reached a chamber. Not a room, a sanctum. It stretched wider than a football field, its domed ceiling displaying a night sky I didn't recognize, stars too numerous, constellations unnameable. Suspended in the center of the space was a sphere of liquid light. Inside it, images flickering. People, places, events, memories. This is the archive of the returned, she said. I turned to her. Returned. Those who were taken, not abducted, invited, chosen. And then I saw her, my grandmother, standing inside the sphere, alive, smiling. She looked older, but her eyes were exactly the same, those soft blue eyes that tucked me into bed during lightning storms, that read me psalms when my mom disappeared. She spoke, not out loud, into me. David, I'm okay. I'm with them now, and so was your mother. The world fell away. My mother, missing since 1996. They never found her body, just an empty car outside of Roswell. I always assumed the worst. And now, here was the truth. Not dead, not lost, returned. I stood paralyzed, watching my grandmother's face suspended in light. She came here before me, she said gently. Your mother, she was the first. I didn't understand. Not yet. In 1996, they called to her, the same way they've now called to you. It's a pattern, genetic, spiritual, a signal passed through blood and memory. I could barely breathe. Why us? The woman beside me, my guide, my host, whatever she was, answered. Because of what you carry. I turned to her, confused. Your lineage holds a frequency, a harmony most humans have lost. It begins in childhood, a fracture followed by longing. That longing opens a door. A door to what? To us. The room began to shift. The sphere dissolved, and in its place came something I'll never forget, a holographic lattice of Earth. But it wasn't the planet I knew. It was layered with energetic grids, some healthy, some fractured, some darkened like charred veins. Your world, she said, is an orchestra with broken instruments. She pointed to a point glowing faintly in North America. This is where your mother vanished. She was called here because the harmonic field collapsed. She helped us stabilize it. I stepped forward. You're saying she's alive? She was. The past tense hit me like ice. Your mother gave everything to repair the breach. Without her, millions would have awakened into chaos instead of clarity. I fell to my knees. So many years I had resented her. So many nights I called her a coward for disappearing. She wasn't a coward. She was a guardian, a soul warrior, and I never got to say goodbye. She left something for you, the guide said. A panel opened in the floor, and a small object floated upward, hovering like a dream. It was a cube, metallic yet translucent, humming with faint blue light. Inside, a flickering image of my mother. "David," she said, her voice clearer than any memory I had, "if you're seeing this, you've been chosen, just like I was. But this time, we're not meant to disappear. We're meant to return, with the truth. Bring it home." And then the cube dimmed. I held it in both hands. I didn't know what it was, but I knew what I had to do. The cube pulsed faintly in my hands, warm, almost alive. I didn't recognize the material. It wasn't plastic, not metal. It felt like memory made solid, a technology that vibrated on some level deeper than sound. The moment I touched it, I felt something slide open in my mind, like a door that had always been there, but now someone had turned the handle. "This is not just a recording," the guide said. "It's an interface, a key. It will show you what your mind is ready to see." I looked into her glowing violet eyes, and what if I'm not ready? It will wait. Back at Melissa's place, I barely spoke. I tucked the cube into my backpack and didn't tell her what happened under the desert. I didn't sleep that night. When I finally activated the cube, it didn't project light. It projected feeling. At first, it was my mother's voice, not through sound, through memory. Her scent, her warmth, the exact way she used to laugh when I climbed into her bed during storms. But then, it changed. I was no longer in my apartment. I was standing on a beach. Not Earth. 3 moons hovered in the sky. The ocean was pink-orange. Crystalline towers stretched from the shoreline like fingers of a dreaming god. And in the distance, figures. Human, not human, something in between. And one of them turned to me. My mother. She smiled, walked toward me, reached out her hand. "I don't have much time," she said. "David, you need to understand. What you call alien is not alien. It's origin. It's return. They're not from out there. They're from before." I didn't understand. Before what? Before forgetting. Before the fall. Before fear replaced frequency. She touched my forehead. And suddenly, I remembered something I'd never known. I was 3 years old, playing in the yard, a light in the sky, a whisper in the wind, a shadow that bent the sun. It wasn't just Grandma who had been visited. I had been too. I just forgot. Until now. That memory, if it was a memory, hit me like a tidal wave breaking through a dam. I was 3 years old again. Backyard, summer, sprinkler mist catching the afternoon light, Grandma sitting on the porch, humming an old hymn, sewing something with hands that had raised 3 generations, and I, barefoot in the grass, paused mid-run. Because the light changed. Not dimmed, not darkened, bent. Like the sun had been caught in a ripple. Like something massive, yet invisible, was pressing against the air above us. I remember looking up, and there it was. A shape. Not solid, not smoke, something in between. Like heat shimmer made sentient. It hovered for 3 seconds. Then I heard it. Not a sound. A vibration inside my chest, like a tuning fork had struck my bones. And then, it was gone. Just gone. At 3 years old, I couldn't explain it, so I buried it. But now, with the cube still humming in my lap and my mother's presence fading like a mist in my living room, I understood. That day had been the beginning. Not of the visitations, but of the invitation. The next morning, Melissa knocked on my door. She held up a manila envelope. "Another one came," she said. Inside, a map. This time, not coordinates. A structure. Blueprints, schematics, not human. And a name written in looping, elegant script at the bottom. The Frequency Well. beneath that, Site 3, Colorado, opened only by bloodline. I looked at the cube. It was now glowing brighter, as if responding to the words, or recognizing them. Bloodline. I looked at Melissa. We have to go. We drove through the night. Melissa and I hadn't done that since we were kids, back when Grandma would pile us into the car and take us on road trips without a destination. She called them pilgrimages without a map. This one was no different. Except this time, we weren't looking for rest stops. We were looking for a well hidden beneath a mountain and a truth older than our civilization. The coordinates led us deep into the San Juan Range in Colorado, past the tourist trails, past the last patch of paved road. At one point, we had to abandon the car entirely and hike 6 miles with just backpacks and the cube. Near dawn, we found it. Not a building, not a cave. A circle in the stone, 12 feet wide, perfectly cut into the earth as if someone had pressed it into the mountain like a stamp. No markings, no door. Until I stepped forward. And the cube glowed white. The circle lit up, spun, and then sank, retracting into the ground with no sound, revealing a staircase that spiraled down into light. Melissa grabbed my arm. "You okay?" I wasn't, but I nodded. We descended. And just like the first time, beneath the New Mexico desert, the walls glowed faintly with bioluminescent lines. But here, they were different. They pulsed in sync with our footsteps, as if the structure was alive and aware of us. And then we reached it. The frequency well. It wasn't a well, not in the way we imagined. It was a chamber the size of a cathedral. In the center, a vertical beam of light rising from the floor to the ceiling, suspended in liquid motion, humming a tone so low we felt it in our spines. Around it, chairs, 9 of them, arranged in a circle. Each one carved from a stone that shimmered like metal. Symbols floated above them in the air, not edged, just hovering. And one chair was glowing. The one facing us. Melissa stepped forward and whispered, "This is like the dream I had." I turned to her. "You had a dream about this?" She nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. "I thought it was just imagination, but this is the exact place." And then the cube floated from my hand, moved on its own, settled into the glowing chair. The light intensified. The chamber shifted, and we heard her voice again. Grandma's. "Welcome to the place where all songs begin." Her voice filled the chamber, not as sound, but as light. It vibrated in the air, danced across the surface of our skin, resonated in the bones of the room itself. Every syllable carried memory, presence, peace. Melissa fell to her knees, tears streaking her face. I just stood there, frozen. Because I could feel her, Grandma, not just speaking to us, but singing through us. Like our bodies were instruments, and she was playing a melody only our DNA remembered. "This place," she said, "was built long before language, before empires, before even breath. It's not a machine. It's a memory field, a chorus of souls who chose to remain connected." The beam of light in the center pulsed brighter, and images spun outward like constellations drawn in reverse. Earth, ancient Earth, people in robes, cities of glass, towers sinking into the stars. Before the fall, Grandma said, humans could remember their origins. They spoke in frequency, not words. They healed with resonance, not medicine. They lived in harmony with other worlds. Melissa whispered, "But we lost it." "No," Grandma corrected. "It was taken, stolen. Your species was fractured by a signal, implanted through trauma, war, and fear. But the well remembers the song, and those who carry the bloodline can restore it. The cube rose higher, rotating slowly. Then it spoke, not with her voice, but my mother's. David, you are the frequency key. When you were born, they marked you. They encoded within you a resonance not even you could hear. But one day, the world would. This well is not just a relic. It's a transmitter, a beacon. It sends healing frequencies to the grid your grandmother showed you. And it's been offline for decades. You can reactivate it, but only if you remember. Remember what? I said aloud. The beam flared. A wave of energy hit me like wind. And suddenly, I wasn't in the chamber anymore. I was in space. Not floating, not dreaming. Seeing. A vision. The earth covered in light, but fractured like stained glass missing its frame. And then 9 lights descending toward it. And I was one of them. I didn't have a body in the vision. I was light, formless, consciousness condensed into presence. And around me, 8 others, beings like stars, ancient, familiar. We weren't separate. We were notes in a single chord. We moved together, descending toward Earth, weaving through layers of energy that sparkled like living auroras. Each one of us carried something, a seed, not physical, but vibrational, meant to restore, recalibrate, remember. As we entered the planet's atmosphere, something shifted. A shadow. A frequency not native to us. A distortion. It twisted one of the 9. They spiraled off course, vanishing into darkness. The rest of us continued. Scattered, embedded, hidden in human bloodlines, until the time was right to reunite. The vision ended with a whisper. You are not just human. You are a returner. I gasped as I came back into my body. Still in the chamber, still in the well. Melissa was clutching her chest, breathing hard. I saw it too, she said. I was one of them. I looked at her stunned. You? She nodded. And you were next to me. You're twins, said a new voice. We both turned. An old man stood near the entrance, where moments ago no one had been. Long gray robe, eyes like burning gold, skin that shimmered between tones like light on water. Not by birth, but by bond. You and Melissa are 2 halves of the same frequency strand. That's why you both saw. That's why you both remember. I stared at him. Who are you? The Keeper, he said, one of 3 remaining guardians of the wells. And if you're both here now, the awakening has begun. A deep hum rumbled through the floor. The beam of light rose higher. The cube glowed white hot. You've unlocked the first seal, the Keeper said, but there are 8 more. 1 for each returner still asleep. I felt the weight of it then. The truth was bigger than Grandma, bigger than Mom, bigger than me. We weren't just uncovering history. We were finishing a mission that began before humanity forgot how to sing. The Keeper approached the beam of light in the center of the chamber. As he reached out, the glow shifted, no longer white, but deep gold, like the sun filtered through ancient parchment. And then, with a single gesture, he drew down from the light a shape, a floating orb, smooth and spinning with lines of unreadable script. This, he said, is the first seal. It marks the awakening of the first returner. He looked at me. You. I stepped forward, the weight of the moment pushing against my chest like gravity. What happens now? Now, he said, you remember who you really are. He held the orb out. The moment I touched it, the well exploded in light. I wasn't in the chamber anymore. I was in a different life. Not a past life, a parallel one. I stood in a city made of crystal and song. Towers resonated in chords, streets hummed beneath my feet. People walked, not hurried or burdened, but attuned, alive in a way modern humans couldn't imagine. I saw myself, not this body, but the essence of me. I was a healer, a harmonizer. My job wasn't to fix what was broken. It was to retune what had fallen out of alignment. Sickness wasn't illness, it was dissonance. And I helped people remember the melody they were born to sing. I came back gasping. The orb dissolved in my hands. The keeper smiled. Now you see. I looked at Melissa. She was pale. I saw it too. The beam shifted again. A second orb rose from the light. The keeper turned to her. The second returner awakens. She took it, closed her eyes. The chamber pulsed with energy, and I saw something new in her, a light behind her eyes. Not new, but ancient, dormant until now. "We're not alone," I whispered. The keeper nodded. "You never were." But something else happened in that moment, something none of us expected. The cube, still suspended near the center of the well, flashed red. A tone rang out, low, wrong, like a string snapping out of tune. The beam of light shuddered. The chamber dimmed. And then we heard it, a voice. But not Grandma's, not Mom's, not the keeper's. This one was cold, ancient, hollow. "They are waking. The seals are breaking. We must stop them before they remember everything." The well went dark. The light in the chamber didn't fade. It was sucked out, like a breath held too long. The warmth was gone. The harmony we'd felt just moments ago had twisted into dissonance. The air didn't just grow colder, it grew heavier, as if something ancient and unwelcome had entered with that voice. The keeper staggered. "They found us," he whispered. "Who?" Melissa asked, eyes wide with fear. He looked at the cube, still pulsing red. The counter frequency. The ground shook. From the edges of the chamber, the shimmering chairs dimmed one by one. The beam in the center flickered like a dying star. Melissa clutched her head, eyes squeezed shut, as if something was clawing into her mind. I stepped forward, instinct driving me now. "Tell me what this is," I demanded. "There is a force," the keeper said, "older than your earthbound myths. It doesn't want control. It wants silence. It feeds on amnesia." When the 9 fell to earth, a shadow followed. It fractured their memory, buried their purpose, planted false songs in human minds, religions of fear, histories of war, traumas passed like inheritance. It made sure you forgot who you were. Melissa cried out. The red pulse from the cube was intensifying, syncing with the low frequency tone that made my bones ache. Something was reaching through it, like a hand trying to pull us backward. The keeper shouted, "You must stabilize the well." "How?" "With your voice." That made no sense. Until I remembered the vision. Healing by resonance. Speech wasn't communication, it was creation. I closed my eyes, tuned in to the feeling my grandmother gave me as a child, the way her humming filled a room with peace, how she sang to flowers in her garden and swore they grew faster. I let go, and I sang. It wasn't a song I knew, it wasn't even a melody. It was a tone, raw and pure, from a place deeper than language. Melissa joined in, then the keeper. The room pulsed with light again, first gold, then white, then something beyond color entirely. The red cube cracked like glass under heat. The voice screamed, "You cannot undo the fall!" But it was already unraveling. The well stabilized. And then silence. Real silence. Not absence, but completion. The beam returned, stronger than before. The cube was gone, but in its place floated a new symbol, a trinity of circles overlapping at the center, glowing silver blue. The keeper bowed. 2 seals awakened, the third is in Europe. You must go before they find the others. We didn't rest, we didn't hesitate. The world had changed forever, and we were now part of something we barely understood, but had been born to remember. 2 days later, we were in France. Not Paris, not the cities tourists know. We went where the map said to go, deep into the Massif Central, an ancient volcanic region older than anything still standing in Europe. The coordinates led us to a monastery. Closed to the public, unlisted, hidden behind a fake vineyard and an old Catholic front that hadn't seen a real priest in decades. Melissa and I stood at the gate as dawn rose behind us, casting the forest in liquid gold. Then the gate opened on its own. We were greeted by silence. No monks, no guards, just wind and crows circling above the steeple. But the bell tower was intact, and it was chiming a tone I hadn't heard before, at least not since the well. A low E note. Exactly the same resonance we had used to collapse the counterfrequency. Melissa whispered, "They're calling us." We followed the sound. Inside the monastery, the air felt thick with memory. Paintings lined the hallways, some religious, some not. One showed a man floating above a lake of stars. Another showed 9 figures descending like comets. One bore a symbol I now recognized, 3 circles intersecting. The seal. And at the end of the hall, behind an ancient oak door, was the next chamber. But this one was different. It wasn't alien. It was earth-made. Stone carved by hand, candles lit without wax, incense smoke curling in patterns that defied physics. And in the center, on a raised platform, was a woman, sitting cross-legged, eyes open, glowing. "You're late," she said, voice like silk across glass. Melissa stepped forward. "Who are you?" The woman smiled. "I'm the third. The one you call Marie. I've been waiting 72 years. I blinked. "You've been here that long?" She nodded. "Since the signal arrived in 1951. I never left this place. I couldn't. I've been holding the third seal in stasis, waiting for the others to awaken." She stood, and I saw it in her eyes. She was one of us, a returner. "But you have to understand," she said, turning toward the altar. "Each awakening draws them closer. The more we remember, the more they come to erase." She pulled back the cloth on the altar. Underneath, a device. Not the cube this time, a sphere, metallic, breathing. And inside it, something that looked like a beating heart made of light. The third seal is not a memory. It's a weapon. The sphere pulsed in rhythm. Thump, 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 like a heartbeat heard from deep underwater. Its light wasn't steady. It shimmered, refracted, changed colors depending on how you looked at it. Melissa leaned closer. "It's alive." Marie nodded. "It's attuned." She motioned us back and circled the altar slowly. Most think awakening is about memory, but remembrance is just the key. The door it opens is power. I looked at the sphere. What kind of power? Creation. Destruction. Resonance strong enough to heal a planet or shatter its field. She placed her hand gently over the sphere. The room responded with a hum so deep I felt it in my teeth. "This is the song heart," she said, "forged in the center of a dying star. It holds one frequency, the origin tone. the vibration of source itself. My mind reeled. If the first well reconnected us to memory and the second reawakened identity, this third seal was different. It wasn't about the past. It was about choice. Marie stepped away. I've been its guardian, but I'm not its wielder. She turned to me. You are. The keeper had said I was the key, but this felt different. Melissa looked concerned. How do we use it? Marie's eyes darkened. You don't, unless you have to. Suddenly, a sound tore through the monastery. A shriek, not human, not machine, something else. The candles blew out. The paintings trembled on the walls. And for the first time, Marie looked afraid. They found us. The silencers. We barely had time to react before the door behind us blew open. Darkness poured in. Not smoke, not shadow, but absence. Figures stepped forward, tall, thin, wrapped in cloaks that absorbed all light. No faces, no feet, just the whisper of entropy with every movement. They didn't speak. They unmade. The walls cracked with a sound like memories breaking. Melissa screamed as one of them reached toward her, and a ripple spread across her skin, like her very existence was being rewritten. I grabbed the sphere. It pulsed, and I heard my mother's voice again. Sing, David, now. So I did. One note, clear, pure. The song heart exploded in light, and everything, the darkness, the walls, the fear, was washed away. When I opened my eyes, the monastery was gone. So was Marie. So was Melissa. Just me. And the song heart, hovering, waiting. I stood alone in a field of stone and ash. The monastery was vapor. No ruins, no smoke, just emptiness, except for the song heart. It floated chest high before me, pulsing with that same rhythm. Each beat felt less like a sound and more like a decision waiting to be made. You survived, came a voice behind me. I turned sharply. The keeper. He wasn't surprised, wasn't alarmed. He looked relieved. You chose resonance over resistance. You activated the song heart. I felt hollow. Melissa's gone. Not gone, shifted. He raised his hand and touched the orb. The light shimmered. And within it, I saw her. Melissa, alive, but changed. Surrounded by light. Suspended, eyes closed, like someone asleep just before waking. She wasn't in pain. She was becoming. The energy you released didn't destroy the silencers, the keeper explained. It recalibrated the field. It pulled every attuned being into a higher resonance to protect them. She's safe, David, for now. I looked into the orb again. She whispered one word. Run. The keeper didn't hesitate. He pressed his hand into the air, and the fabric of space split open like a page turning. Behind it, a corridor of light. The fourth seal is in South America, he said. You don't have long. The silencers were a shadow, but the true erasure comes next. I stepped toward the portal. The song heart followed like a loyal pet. What's coming? I asked. The keeper's face grew dark. The one who broke the 9. He remembers you. I stepped through. The corridor closed. The stars bent. And I was gone. I emerged in jungle. Thick, humid air. Cicadas screaming. Branches tangled like nerves. The song heart floated silently beside me, its light dimmed to a pale blue glow, as if camouflaging itself from something it could sense, but I couldn't yet see. I walked for hours. No path, No guide, only instinct. And then, at the edge of a ravine, I found him, sitting cross-legged on a flat rock, shirtless, meditating in the middle of a clearing that was impossibly silent. No insects, no wind. Just him. And the moment he opened his eyes, I felt the air change. "You made it further than I thought," he said. His voice wasn't cruel. It was disappointed, like a teacher watching a student solve a riddle the wrong way. David Whitaker, bearer of the third seal, descendant of the song line. You were supposed to stay asleep. He stood. He was tall, barefoot, eyes like molten silver. And the instant I saw his face, something in me remembered pain. Not physical, cosmic, like betrayal older than any life I'd lived. "Who are you?" I asked. He tilted his head. I was one of the 9, before I fractured the song. My blood ran cold. "You broke the harmony?" He nodded slowly. "Not out of hatred, out of necessity. Earth was becoming too loud, too fast, too many songs competing for dominance. The signal was chaos. I broke the 9 so your world could sleep. And now you want to wake it up again?" He looked down at the song heart, now hovering protectively between us. "That's a mistake." I backed away. "Where's the 4th seal?" He smiled. "Inside me." I never let it go. Suddenly, the song heart vibrated sharply, a high tone, defensive. He raised a hand, and it froze mid-air, caught in an invisible field. "This is what you don't understand, David. Waking up isn't safe. Memory is power, and power corrupts. Do you really think humanity deserves to remember?" The light around him darkened. The jungle behind him wilted slightly. He walked toward me. "I can show you the truth," he whispered, "if you're ready. But to take the seal, you have to defeat me. Not in combat, in resonance." He touched his chest, and the 4th seal, a spiral of crystal and metal embedded in his sternum, began to glow. "One song," he said. "You sing, I sing. If your frequency overcomes mine, the seal is yours. If not, you forget everything, and the song heart returns to sleep." He extended his hand. "Shall we begin?" I took his hand, and the world dissolved. Not burned, not shattered, it simply shifted. Suddenly, we were standing in a void, an endless space of light and shadow where time moved sideways and sound painted the sky. Above us, stars that pulsed like hearts. Below us, memory made into glass. This was not a battlefield. It was a symphony hall for souls. "You will sing your truth," he said. "I will sing mine. One of us will become the dominant frequency. The other will be absorbed." He stepped back, closed his eyes, and sang. It was terrifying, not because it was harsh, but because it was beautiful. His voice didn't echo, it multiplied, wrapping around me in layers of harmony that sounded like every mother I'd ever loved, every church I'd ever entered, every lullaby I'd forgotten. His tone said, "Sleep, forget, be safe." It was comfort, but I knew it was a trap, a silk coffin, a song of eternal sedation. When it ended, he opened his eyes and whispered, "Your turn." I didn't know what to do, so I didn't think. I just let go. And from somewhere inside me, a sound rose. At first, it was raw, cracked, imperfect. Then it found shape and melody. I sang of loss, of my mother's disappearance, of my grandmother's courage, of Melissa's awakening, of the children we were and the memory we lost, of the 9 who fell, of the harmony we were meant to be. My voice wasn't strong, but it was real. And the song heart responded. It pulsed with every note, growing brighter, deeper, until it began to sing with me. He staggered, his harmony warped, the void around him flickered. He snarled, not in rage, but grief. You remember too much. I tried to spare you. I tried to save you. I stepped forward, sang louder. The light surged, and then his song cracked, shattered. He fell to his knees. The spiral in his chest rose from his body, suspended in midair, glowing white. The fourth seal. He looked up at me, tears in his eyes. Finish it. Reclaim the memory. But beware, when the ninth awakens, even truth can become a weapon. The void collapsed. I was back in the jungle. The spiral hovered before me. I reached out, touched it, and in that moment, I remembered everything. The instant my fingers touched the fourth seal, reality broke open. Not shattered, unfolded. Like the pages of a book I didn't know I'd written. I was no longer in the jungle. I was in the beginning. I stood at the edge of a planet before it was born, just dust and fire and sacred intention. I watched the 9 descend from a higher realm, each carrying a piece of the origin tone, each embodying a frequency Earth would one day need. They weren't angels. They weren't aliens. They were rememberers, sent not to save, but to sing Earth into alignment, to harmonize its awakening. I saw my past lives, not one, thousands. Librarian of Atlantis, temple builder in Giza, oracle in Delphi, midwife in Tikal, always in the background, always one of the quiet ones, one of the keepers of the song. And I saw Melissa, over and over, by my side. Sometimes sister, sometimes student, sometimes stranger, but always present. We were part of a chord, a harmonic bond spanning lifetimes. And Grandma? She was one of the original 9. She hadn't just raised me, she recruited me. The memory ended like a sunrise. I was back in the jungle, flat on my back, the spiral seal embedded in my palm like a scar made of light. The song heart pulsed beside me, stronger now, more alert, like it had grown in awareness too. The man who had held the seal, my would-be opponent, was gone, not erased, returned, redeemed. And in the air where he had stood floated a small metallic shard. I picked it up. Etched into its surface was a symbol I'd never seen before, a double helix inside a circle of fire, the 5th seal's signature. Below it, coordinates. Alaska. Before I could move, the song heart vibrated violently. A pulse spread out into the trees. And then, sky split like paper. A rift opened above me, and something stepped through. Not a silencer, not human. A being I'd only seen in dreams. Tall, wreathed in geometry, eyes like stars collapsing. David Whitaker, it said. The council requests your presence. And then, we were gone. There was no travel, no movement, just arrival. One moment, I was standing in a jungle clearing beneath a tear in the sky. The next, I stood in a chamber that couldn't exist. Endless in scope, circular in shape, and suspended in space without walls or floor. The stars surrounded us, close enough to touch, yet impossibly far. The constellations moved, not spinning, but singing in slow rotation. At the center, a platform of light. Around it, 9 thrones, 7 occupied, 2 vacant. And behind each figure, symbols of frequency, spirals, waveforms, crystal matrices, and geometry that felt alive. This was not mythology. This was not metaphor. This was the Council of Frequencies, and I had been summoned. The being who brought me here stepped forward. Their forms shimmered like layered glass, every motion leaving a faint echo of itself behind. "This is the boy who sings in scar tissue," said one of the seated figures. "He is not a boy," replied another. "He is a remembering." I tried to speak, but my throat locked, not from fear, from truth. Their presence triggered everything inside me: memory, ancestry, soul patterns passed through DNA. I wasn't meeting strangers. I was rejoining elders. "David Whitaker," said the central figure, their voice resonating in perfect tritone harmony. "You have awakened 4 of 9 seals. You carry the song heart. You survived the resonance duel. And now the 5th calls from beneath the ice." They all looked at me, not with judgment, but expectation. "But before you continue," said the one to the left, whose face was shaped like starlight, "you must understand what you're truly doing." The council shifted, and then they showed me. A hologram unfolded in the space above us. Earth, but not present day. A possible Earth. One where the 9 seals had never fallen, where humanity had never forgotten its origin, where children learned vibration before vocabulary, where pain was not pathology, but misalignment corrected in song. It was beautiful. And then they showed another Earth, one scarred by silence, skies choked in interference, souls fragmented by fear, technologies that mimicked connection but bury Basong deeper. It was this Earth, our Earth, the path we were still walking. "Every seal you awaken," the council said, "pulls humanity toward the higher timeline. But it also awakens the erasers. They exist to preserve forgetfulness, because memory is the one thing that cannot be controlled." They raised their hands, and 2 new thrones appeared. Empty. One shimmered with the energy of someone yet to awaken. The other burned with something darker, someone awake but opposed. They all looked at me. One will help you, finding the 6th seal. The other will try to sing the world back to sleep. I took a breath. What happens if I fail? The stars dimmed. Then the fall begins again. And this time, there will be no return. The council dissolved around me like breath on glass. No farewells, no portals, just transition. And then, cold. An all-consuming cold that didn't just numb the body, but the mind, the memories. I was in Alaska now, dropped at the edge of the Arctic Circle. Wind howled across a flat, white nothingness. The sun barely skimmed the horizon, casting long blue shadows that stretched for miles. The songheart hovered close to my chest, its warmth the only thing keeping frostbite at bay. Somewhere beneath this frozen world was the 5th seal. I trekked for hours, following the coordinates the council embedded in my mind. No GPS, no signal, just inner compass, tuned by memory, not magnetism. Eventually, I saw it, a dome of ice half buried in snow, almost invisible except for the flickering glyphs across its surface. As I approached, the glyphs responded, glowing in pulse with the songheart. The entrance opened like breath. Inside was silence. Not quiet, absence. A vacuum of sound so complete I could hear my heartbeat in my teeth. The chamber within the dome was spherical, carved entirely from black ice. Floating at the center, a frozen figure. A woman. Eyes closed, hands outstretched, suspended in a lattice of crystal threads. I knew her name before she spoke. Because she wasn't a stranger. She was Melissa. Not the Melissa I knew, but a version of her from another life. Another frequency strand, a parallel resonance that had been split during the first fall. And now, She was waking. Her eyes opened, glowing the color of glacier fire. "You made it," she whispered. "I've waited since the first shattering. You've carried the tune this far. Now it's time to harmonize the echoes." The song heart reacted, spinning faster. A pattern emerged on the floor, concentric rings of light, like ripples on a frozen pond. Melissa stepped down from the suspension field, barefoot on the ice. "This place," she said, "isn't just the resting site of the fifth seal. It's where the eraser was born." I froze. "You mean—" She nodded. "Yes, the one who sang silence into the nine. He was made here, forged in stillness, programmed by fear. He's not just trying to stop you. He's trying to finish what he started." Suddenly, the chamber trembled. A new frequency echoed through the dome, low, hollow, and rising from beneath our feet. Melissa turned to me, eyes fierce. "He knows you're here, and he's sending the uncorded." The walls cracked. Light burst. The fifth seal rose between us, hovering, vibrating, spinning faster than any so far. "You have to sing it open," Melissa said, "before they arrive." I reached out, touched it, and the world collapsed again. This time, not into memory, but into warning. The instant I touched the fifth seal, the ice beneath me melted into memory. But this was no gentle vision. This was a fracture. I was in a battlefield of sound. Not bombs, not guns. Frequencies. Two opposing chords locked in eternal combat, one rising in harmony, the other grinding in dissonance so deep it made blood feel corrosive. Souls floated through the air like torn fabric, shredded by noise. And at the center, a choir with no faces. The uncorned. They sang not to create, but to erase. Their notes unraveled thought. Their song scraped identity from bone. They were what happened when memory died and only programming remained. I snapped back into the chamber, gasping. The ice walls were cracking now, fragments falling like frozen tears. Melissa stood with arms out, generating a frequency shield I could barely see, hexagonal patterns of translucent energy, repelling something outside, something that pressed inward like gravity soaked in hatred. "The uncorded are real," she said. "Remnants of failed awakenings, souls that tried to remember but collapsed under the weight of it. They serve the eraser now. They want the seal." I looked at the glowing construct before me. It wasn't like the others. It didn't just pulse. It screamed. In frequencies I couldn't hear, but my cells could. And suddenly, I realized the fifth seal wasn't a memory or a tool. It was a test. A voice echoed in the chamber. Not mine, not Melissa's, not even the council. It was older. "To hold the fifth, you must sing what you fear. Name the note you buried deepest. Release the frequency of your own fracture." I closed my eyes and found it. The moment I'd never spoken of. I was 10, in the hospital. My mother, before she vanished, lying in a bed, whispering things no doctor understood. She sang to the ceiling, hummed patterns. The nurses called it dementia. I called it music. But then she stopped, looked at me, and said, "You'll never see me again. But when you sing my name, I'll come home." Then she disappeared. That song, the one I never sang, was the note. I opened my mouth and let it out. It was broken, raw, a lullaby interrupted by time. But as it passed through the chamber, the fifth seal responded. It spun, cracked and opened, revealing a core of white flame. Melissa collapsed to her knees. The ice behind us shattered, and the uncorded stepped through. They weren't monsters. They were people. Eyes empty, voices glitching, limbs twitching like broken metronomes. But their presence, it drained meaning. One of them looked at me and whispered, "You remember too much. Let us help you forget." The fifth seal lifted from the air, dissolved into my chest. The song heart responded instantly, unleashing a burst of golden light. And for a second, the uncorded remembered, just enough to scream and vanish. When it was over, the chamber was in ruins. Melissa crawled toward me. "You passed it," she said, "but you lost something too." She pointed to my hand. The scar where the fourth seal had been was gone, replaced with a black mark, a countdown. The black mark on my palm pulsed like a second heartbeat, irregular, anxious, aware. It wasn't ink. It wasn't blood. It was a warning. Melissa stared at it, pale. "I've seen that before," she whispered, "in one of the council's projections." She crawled to the edge of the fractured ice floor and retrieved a small crystalline shard from the wreckage. With trembling fingers, she slid it across the mark on my palm. The shard lit up instantly. 9 concentric rings spiraled outward from the point of contact. The outer 8 glowed softly, but the 9th ring flickered. Black, red, then black again. "That's not a seal," she said. "It's a limit." The voice returned, same one that tested me at the 5th seal. "You were not meant to awaken them all. Each seal rewrites your code. At the 9th, you will no longer be human." I staggered back. "You mean I'll die?" "No, you'll transcend. And not all of you will survive that choice." Melissa sat down beside me, tired, resigned. This is what they never told us. Awakening isn't about remembering who we were. It's about choosing what we'll become. Silence fell. Outside, the snowstorm had stopped. But far in the distance, thunder echoed, not from weather, but from resonance. Something was coming. Something massive. And then, new coordinates appeared in my mind. No voice delivered them. No being explained. But I knew. Seal 6 had been activated. Not by me, by someone else. I turned to Melissa. "Someone beat us to it." She nodded. "And if they did it wrong, it won't open the world. It'll split it." Suddenly, the song heart spun mid-air, and from within it a signal emerged, faint, encrypted, like a lost broadcast from another time. A face appeared. Not human, but not alien either. Somewhere in between. Their voice shook the room. "This is Harmony Base. Seal 6 has been broken by force. The eraser has breached the core. Returners are falling. I repeat, this is not an awakening. It's a hijack. To all remaining frequency bearers, Seal 7 must not be opened." The message cut out. The song heart dimmed. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was the eye of a storm. We moved fast. There was no rest, no debrief, no comfort, just flight. Melissa and I chartered a covert jump jet through a contact she barely trusted, an old resistance pilot who only flew when the stars aligned, literally. He charted his paths not by GPS, but by stellar frequency maps only a handful of people on Earth could read. "Where to?" he asked, already fueling the craft. "Antarctica," I said, "near Vostok Station." It wasn't a guess. The coordinates from the broken transmission painted a clear location: Harmony Base. A research facility so deeply classified, even most world governments didn't know it existed. Built over a tectonic resonance node, exactly where SEAL 6 was supposed to remain buried until humanity was ready. It had been forced open, and now the balance was collapsing. The jet burned silent through the upper atmosphere, dodging detection via cloaking harmonics that only returners could understand. I held the Songheart close to my chest. It pulsed erratically, responding to something buried deep beneath the ice. Melissa sat across from me, head bowed, eyes closed, murmuring old activation tones Grandma once taught us. Then she stopped. There's someone else down there. Another returner. But something's wrong with their frequency. I reached out through the Songheart and felt it. A voice, familiar but dissonant, like a melody you know by heart played on broken strings. We landed on a glacier plateau an hour before sunrise. The entrance to Harmony Base had been blown open, frozen steel bent outward like paper. Something escaped. Inside, the walls were covered in frost and symbols scorched into metal, language made from sound, etched by resonance. The first body we found wasn't dead, not physically, but their frequency, gone, like their soul had been rewritten. The eraser had passed through here, but more importantly, one of the 9 had already awakened. Deep in the core chamber, where the seal should have been stable and protected, we found it, cracked, leaking light like plasma. And beside it, on his knees, arms outstretched, eyes blind with light, David Whitaker. Not me. Another me. A parallel version. Another strand. One that hadn't survived the awakening. He looked up and screamed, but not with his voice, with mine. The room shook. My body shook. The Songheart nearly shattered in my hands. And then, everything inside me split. 2 Davids, 1 reality, and a frequency too unstable to sustain both. Seal 6 was forced open through your shadow, Melissa said, backing away in horror. The eraser used you against yourself. I fell to my knees. The fractured version of me began to chant the counter-frequencies we used to fight, the same ones the uncorded obeyed. I had to act, but I didn't know how. And then, Grandma's voice whispered from somewhere beyond the chamber. There's only ever one melody. It just takes 2 hands to play it. I stood, faced myself, and began to sing. Not to destroy, to integrate, to forgive the shadow, to fold the fracture back into the song. It was agony. It was alignment. It was both. And when it ended, only one of us remained. Me, whole, alive, and carrying Seal 6. But the mark on my palm had changed. 1 ring had collapsed inward. Now there were 8. The countdown had begun. We didn't speak for hours after Harmony Base. There was nothing left to say, only silence to honor what had nearly been lost. I stared at my palm. 8 rings remained, but now they pulsed with urgency. Each rhythm was faster than the last, like a song building to a climax it couldn't stop. And I knew, once the final seal opened, I would no longer be what I am now. Not dead, not gone, but rewritten. We flew to Chile under auroras that shimmered red. The eraser was moving faster now, activating ancient countertones embedded in Earth's crust, tones designed to suppress the global resonance grid. Every region had a harmonic anchor. If they were corrupted, the songline would collapse. The 7th seal was buried beneath the Atacama Desert, not under rock, under memory. The location had been erased from all maps, only accessible through tonal alignment and ancestral dreaming. Melissa had the key. She'd carried it in her sleep for years, a lullaby Grandma once sang when we were children. Now we realized it was a map. We reached the site, a canyon shaped like a spiral. Deep in its heart, a mirrored obelisk, cracked and half buried. Around it, bones. Not human, not animal, something in between. Creatures who once guarded the seal and died trying. Melissa and I approached slowly. The Songheart was vibrating out of control. I touched the obelisk, and the sky split. Not with lightning, with memory. The stars above blinked out, one by one, replaced by eyes. Watching, judging. Then a voice filled the canyon, ancient and female and furious. You are not worthy of the seventh. You still doubt, you still fear. Prove you are not a virus in the song. A wind howled from below. Figures rose from the dust, souls I had failed. A boy I couldn't save, a friend I'd betrayed. Even a version of Melissa who died screaming in an alternate timeline. They all sang at me. A dissonant trial. I dropped to my knees. But Melissa, my Melissa, stepped into the circle. She sang back. One note. Clear. True. It cut through the noise like light through fog. And the obelisk responded. It sank into the earth, revealing a spiral staircase of light. The seal was below. We descended. And at the bottom, an amphitheater carved from obsidian. In the center, the seventh seal, hovering, waiting. Melissa turned to me, eyes wide with tears. This one's mine. I'm ready. She stepped forward, touched it, and as it opened, she didn't scream. She glowed, lifted into the air, wrapped in ribbons of sound. The seal embedded in her chest. She floated down, whole, changed. Now we were two seal bearers, two voices of the nine. But the sky above us cracked again, and a cold wind carried a new sound. The eraser was coming. We stood on the canyon's edge. Below us, the seven-seal chamber dimmed, still echoing with the final tones of Melissa's awakening. Above us, the sky peeled. Not like clouds moving, not like weather. It peeled like a canvas being torn back to reveal something hidden behind it. And what we saw was not the stars. It was a grid. A lattice of black geometry stretching across the sky, spinning with countertones and frequencies designed to erase harmonic light. The eraser had activated the sky mesh. It's not natural, Melissa said, her voice steady. It's synthetic resonance, artificial silence. It's the lock. She knelt in the sand and placed her palm flat on the earth. The seal within her lit up, and ripples of energy spread outward like sonar. Then she gasped. He's activated the failsafe. When Seal 8 awakens, the mesh will collapse over Earth's natural grid. It'll override the songline permanently. I looked at her. Then we can't just awaken it. We have to transform it. The Songheart responded instantly. Its color shifted from gold to violet to something I couldn't name. And then, for the first time, it spoke. Seal 8 is not buried. It is held by the first returner. We looked at each other. The first? Melissa asked. I thought Grandma was... No, the Songheart pulsed. There was one before her. One who fell during the original descent and never returned. She became the hidden note, the missing chord. The Songheart projected new coordinates. North Africa, the Eye of the Sahara, long believed by some to be the lost site of Atlantis, now revealed as the cradle of the first fracture. We moved quickly. No jets, no maps, just harmonic traversal, melody-based teleportation, unlocked by the seventh seal's alignment. We traveled through song, and then we were there. Sand stretched for miles in circular patterns, concentric rings carved into the earth by forces older than water. In the center, buried beneath eons of time, A chamber. Not human, not alien, but origin. Inside, suspended in a prism of frozen light, was a woman. Skin translucent, hair white as ash, eyes closed. And on her chest, Seal 8, glowing faintly, barely alive. Melissa whispered, "That's not a person. That's a song in stasis." As we approached, the chamber responded. Tones rang out from the walls, deep, slow, mournful. The seal pulsed, and the woman's eyes opened. She looked at us like she had waited forever. Then she spoke one word. David. I staggered. She knew me, not just my name, my soul. "I was the first to fall," she said, her voice like wind through crystal. I tried to hold the tone as the others descended, but the eraser found me first and turned my memory into a prison. Only the bearer of 6 can release me. I stepped forward. My hand still bore the countdown. 7 rings left. But if I didn't act, none of them would matter. I reached out, touched her chest. The seal awakened. She screamed, but not in pain, in song. It poured out of her, a frequency I'd never heard before, so pure it reshaped the chamber around us. Walls curled inward, the grid above Earth flickered, and somewhere in the distance, the eraser howled. Seal 8 embedded itself into her once more, but now it was alive, and so was she, the first returner, restored. And she looked at me with eyes full of starlight. "Now you know who the 9th is," she said. "Don't let her wake alone." The chamber collapsed behind us, not in ruin, but in resolution. The first returner, her name was Solène, walked across the desert as if the wind itself recognized her rhythm. She didn't speak much. She didn't need to. Every step she took harmonized the air. The seal inside her was awake, and now so was she. We regrouped with Melissa at a harmonic relay site buried beneath an abandoned radio tower in Morocco. It was one of the few places left on Earth untouched by the sky mesh. Inside, we laid out what we knew. 8 seals were now awakened. The sky mesh was nearly complete, and the eraser was not hiding anymore. He had begun singing into the mesh itself, rewriting global frequency layers, embedding silence in the roots of human thought. Already, parts of the world had begun to forget. Wars reignited, memories unraveled, voices grew hollow. "He's using humanity's fear of awakening," Melissa said, feeding on it, turning the songline into a spiral of despair. Solène remained silent, but her eyes burned brighter. Then she finally spoke. "He knows the 9th is waking, and he's afraid." I turned to her. "Who is she?" I asked. "Where is the 9th seal?" Solène looked at me, softly, sadly. "You've seen her already. You've heard her voice your entire life. She didn't fall like the rest of us. She hid. She was placed in the only vessel the eraser would never suspect." Melissa went pale. "No." Solène nodded. "Yes. The 9th returner is your mother, David." The words cracked something inside me. I saw her again, my mother, in that hospital bed, singing to the ceiling, telling me I'd see her again when I sang her name. And now I knew why. She didn't die. She didn't vanish. She was sealed. But there was more. Solène turned toward the wall and traced a spiral pattern into the air. A hologram unfolded, a map of Earth's frequency grid, now corrupted in 8 sectors. Only one remained untouched, buried beneath the Pacific Ocean. A fortress, a sanctum, and a tomb. The eraser placed her there, Solène said, not to imprison her, but to protect himself. If the ninth awakens, the entire harmonic field resets. He loses everything. So he buried her in silence. But now she's stirring. She's humming again, and the world is listening. I looked at the countdown on my palm. 6 rings, 1 final seal. And beyond that, the song that could end the war or erase us all. The Pacific rolled beneath us like a sleeping god. We flew low in a cloaked vessel, its engines powered by resonant shielding that hummed in sync with the song heart. Solène piloted, her eyes closed, navigating not with instruments, but with memory. Melissa stood behind her, tuning the harmonic compass embedded in her chest. And I stood at the observation window, staring into the vastness of ocean below. Somewhere in that depth was my mother, the ninth. We reached the coordinates just after midnight. The sky above us was cloudless, unnaturally still. The moon flickered, literally flickered, like an image projected through interference. The sky mesh was closing in. Time was collapsing. And then, as we hovered over a black patch of sea with no waves, no current, Solène spoke. She's just beneath. But so is he. The song heart vibrated with a pitch I'd never heard. Painful, urgent. The water below began to boil, not with heat, but with tone. Concentric circles spread from the center, and then the ocean opened. Like a lens dilating, revealing a descent tunnel made entirely of light and sound. We dove. The vessel shifted modes, encasing us in a harmonic field that adjusted gravity and time dilation as we plunged downward. What should have taken hours took seconds. At the bottom, we emerged into a submerged chamber larger than Manhattan, carved from crystal, lit by song. And in the center, suspended in a pillar of frozen light, was her, my mother, the ninth seal. Eyes closed, hands out, wrapped in silence so total it distorted the space around her. The chamber was guarded, not with machines, but by statues, 9 of them, each representing a frequency, each a monument to the fallen. And as we approached, they moved. Solène whispered, "These are the harmonic sentinels, designed to awaken the ninth, but only if the bearer of all previous seals arrives." I stepped forward. My palm glowed. The countdown mark expanded, 6 rings now spinning in perfect sync. Each sentinel knelt. The chamber shifted, and the pillar dissolved. My mother fell forward. I caught her. She was light as breath, but her body radiated power, like holding a thunderstorm in prayer. Her eyes fluttered open, and in the softest voice, she said, "David, you came back." Melissa gasped. The seal in her chest pulsed. Solène bowed her head. "The ninth is awake," she whispered. "The song can begin." But then, the walls darkened. The water trembled. The mesh cracked. And a voice filled the chamber. Massive, mechanical, unnatural. "You were warned. You were broken. You were not meant to remember." The eraser had arrived, and the final battle had begun. The walls of the chamber vibrated like the skin of a living drum. The eraser didn't step in. He descended like a thought taking form, like a nightmare given gravity. His body was not physical. It was a shell of refracted memory, composed of every forgotten frequency Earth had ever suffered. He towered above us, eyes flickering with dead stars. Voice like a glitch in the divine. "You've gone too far." The ninth was never meant to awaken. This world cannot carry the full song. My mother rose from my arms, unaided. Her feet touched the crystal floor like a melody rejoining its harmony. Her eyes glowed with seal light. "You were one of us once," she said, her voice calm. "But you chose silence over pain. You chose erasure over evolution." The eraser snarled. "I chose mercy. You chose chaos." Salin stepped beside her, Melissa too, and then so did I. Together we formed a circle, each of us bearing a seal. The chamber reacted. The sentinel sang. The air turned to light. The eraser raised a hand. From behind him, shadows poured in, the uncorded, thousands. Souls stripped of identity, now carriers of his silence. They sang a broken hymn. A wave of anti-resonance surged toward us. We sang back, not to destroy, to reclaim. Salin led with the first tone, origin. Melissa followed with the seventh, truth beyond trauma. I followed with the sixth, integration of shadow. And my mother, she released the ninth. A note so pure it made the eraser recoil. The uncorded froze mid-attack. Their forms wavered. And then they remembered. Tears fell from faces long forgotten. Songs reawakened in the throats of the lost. The army turned. And in that moment of collapse, the eraser screamed, not in defeat, in fear. Because he was alone. His body flickered, destabilizing. We stepped forward, singing louder, stronger, whole. And as we did, the chamber expanded into the sky mesh itself. We were no longer underwater. We were above Earth, suspended in the final node of resonance. The entire planet hummed beneath us, waiting, listening. "You don't have to die," my mother whispered to him. "You just have to let go." For a moment, he almost did, but then he struck. One last pulse of silence, a final erasure. Melissa screamed as the seal in her chest ruptured. Salin staggered. My mother collapsed. Only I remained standing. And then the song heart leapt from my chest, expanded, encompassed everything. "David, sing now. Finish it." I opened my mouth and released the final chord. It wasn't my voice. It was every voice that had ever lived, every returner, every forgotten soul, every child who ever hummed to the stars. The eraser shattered, not into dust, into light, and the mesh broke. Silence followed, but not the eraser silence. This was something else. Completion. The mesh was gone. Its fragments dissolved into the upper atmosphere, refracting into auroras never seen before, colors no eye had names for, patterns no science could explain. The uncorded wept. They collapsed into themselves, their forms untwisting, their frequencies stabilizing. And one by one, they stood, whole, human, awake. Melissa rose, clutching her chest. The ruptured seal had healed, transformed. It now pulsed with dual-tone energy, her own, and a piece of the ninth. Solène bowed her head, singing the death song of the old era. And my mother? She took my hand. "You did it," she said. "You remembered us all." We returned to the surface. No ship, no portal, just emergence. The world met us with silence first, then music. Across the planet, people began to sing without knowing why. Children hummed tones that hadn't been heard since before history. Old men cried in forgotten languages. In hospitals, those in comas awoke whispering names of the nine. In war zones, guns were dropped by hands that remembered. The songline had returned, and Earth itself responded.
Oceans glowed with bioluminescent sigils. Trees began to hum low frequencies that healed anxiety. Ancient structures activated, resonant pyramids, echoing temples, forgotten altars, all beginning to pulse again with frequency data. Earth was not just alive, she was singing back. I watched it unfold from a cliffside. The song heart hovered near me, smaller now, more serene. My countdown mark? Gone. In its place, a spiral. Closed. Complete. Melissa joined me, sitting cross-legged in the grass. You ever wonder what happens after the story ends? I looked out over a world reborn. Maybe this isn't the end, I said. Maybe this is just the first note of a new harmony. And somewhere beyond the sky, beyond time, beyond memory, the nine watched. Not as gods, not as saviors, but as singers in the cosmic choir, smiling, finally in tune.
20 years passed. Earth no longer ran on electricity alone. Now it pulsed with resonance. Cities were quiet, not silent, in tune. People didn't rush anymore. They moved like notes in a song, listening to one another, listening to the planet. Conflict still existed, but beneath it, understanding. Beneath that, harmony waiting to be remembered. Children were born who could hear light. Elders began recalling dreams from lifetimes they'd never lived. Time itself had bent, not broken. The Great Reawakening, they called it. David Whittaker had disappeared. Melissa, too. Their story became a myth, then a sacred memory, then something else entirely. The Songheart? Last seen at the Temple of Frequencies in what used to be southern Peru, orbiting slowly above a crystalline obelisk that pulsed in rhythm with the planet's core. And Earth? Earth thrived. But in a quiet part of Mongolia, under stars untouched by satellites, a girl was born humming. No one taught her the melody. Yet every time she sang, ancient ruins pulsed. And every time she slept, she dreamed of 9 voices. And one more, a 10th. Never part of the original choir. Not born of the 9. Not made from the fractures. But something new, something beyond. She opened her eyes one night and whispered, "I dreamed of a war that hasn't happened yet. And a song we haven't learned to sing." She looked at the stars. And for the briefest moment, one of them blinked back.